Okay, I don't know what the heck that was about, but I'm here. I just have to get everything else open back up. Oh my gosh. I do not know what the heck that was about, guys. I'm like super in shock. Like, what the heck? Well, we're here. We're here. We're getting it done. I apologize. Yeah, I know I'm ghosting y'all right now. We're gonna fix this, guys. It's gonna get better. Come on, just connect. There you go. Okay, well, welcome back, guys. I apologize for that crazy random thing that just happened. I literally don't have the words as to why that happened. All of a sudden, my stuff just like turned off, and yeah, I don't know. Super weird. Okay, well, let's keep going. Man, that was so odd. If that happens again, I'm not coming back. But I'm surprised. I literally was like mid talking to you guys and then that happened. Okay. So they were talking about where the stuff was, right? Where they think it is. So where better than her bedchamber? He eyed her thoughtfully and for long enough to make her blush. Finally he said, "We know he visited her there at least twice." She blinked. Twice? My father and my father's younger brother. He died at Trafalgar, he explained, even though she hadn't asked. Oh, that seemed to take the winds out of her sails, at least momentarily. I'm sorry. Gareth shrugged. It was a long time ago, but thank you. She nodded slowly, looking as if she wasn't quite sure what to say. Right, she finally said. Well, right, he echoed. Well. Oh, hang it all, she burst out. I cannot stand this. I'm not made to sit idly by and brush things under the rug. Europe, could you pin that message that I had there earlier? The whole, she's reading, Toasty's reading, it's in his kiss. I don't even know if it's still in the chat. Sorry to interrupt again. I just realized it wasn't up there. If you could pin it and put the 18 and up thing in it, that would be great. Okay, here we go. Gareth opened his mouth to speak, not that he had any idea of what to say, but Hyacinth wasn't done. I know I should be quiet, and I know I should leave well enough alone, but I can't. I just can't do it. She looked at him, and she looked like she wanted to grab him by his shoulders and shake. Do you understand? Not a word, he admitted. I have to know, she cried out. I have to know why you asked me to marry you. It was a topic he did not wish to revisit. I thought you said you didn't come here to discuss my father. I lied, she said. You didn't really believe me, did you? No, he realized. I don't suppose I did. I can't. She wrung her hands together, looking more pained and tortured than he'd ever seen her. A few strands of her hair had come loose from its pinnings, probably the result of her anxious gestures, and her color was high. But it was her eyes that looked the most changed. There was a desperation there, a strange discomfort that did not belong. And he realized that that was the thing about Hyacinth, the distinguishing characteristic that set her so apart from the rest of humanity. She was always at ease in her own skin. She knew who she was, and she liked who she was, and he supposed that was a large part of why he enjoyed her company. And he realized that she had, and she was, so many things he'd always wanted. She knew her place in this world. She knew where she belonged. She knew who she belonged with. And he wanted the same. He wanted it with an intensity that cut right down to his soul. It was a strange, almost indescribable jealousy, but it was there, and it seared him. If you have any feelings for me whatsoever, she said, you will understand how bloody difficult this is for me. So for the love of God, Gareth, will you say something? No, I'm not. Does it seem like I am? My phone's not going off. It's not mine. It's you. Dang it, don't scare me like that. Sorry guys, again, take away. He opened his mouth to speak, but the words seemed to strangle him. Why had he asked her to marry him? There were 100 reasons, 1,000. He tried to remember just what it was that he had pushed the idea into his mind. It had come to him suddenly, he remembered that. But he didn't recall exactly why, except that it had seemed the right thing to do. Not because it was expected, not because it was proper, but just because it was right. And yes, it was true that it had never crossed his mind, or that had crossed his mind that it would be the ultimate win in this never-ending game with his father. But that wasn't why he'd done it. He'd done it because he had to. Because he couldn't imagine not doing it. Because he loved her. He felt himself slide, and thank God the desk was behind him, or else he would have ended up on the floor. How on earth had this happened? He was in love with Hyacinth Bridgerton. Surely someone somewhere was laughing about this. I'll go, she said, her voice breaking, and it was only when she reached for the door that he realized he must have been silent for a whole minute. No! He called out, and his voice sounded impossibly hoarse. Wait! And then, please. She stopped, turned, shut the door. And he realized that he had to tell her, not that he loved her, that he wasn't quite ready to reveal, but he had to tell her the truth about his marriage, or about his birth. He couldn't trick her into marriage. Hyacinth, The words jammed in his throat. He never told anyone, not even his grandmother. No one knew the truth except for him and the Baron. For 10 years, Gareth had kept it inside, allowed it to grow and fill him until sometimes it felt like it was all that he was. Nothing but a secret. Nothing but a lie. I need to tell you something, he said haltingly. And she must have sensed that this was something out of the ordinary, because she went very still. And Hyacinth was rarely still. My father... It was strange. He never thought to say it, had never rehearsed the words, and he didn't know how to put them together, didn't know which sentence to choose. He's not my father, he finally blurted out. Hyacinth blinked. Twice. I don't know who my real father is. Still, she said nothing. I expect I never will. He watched her face, waited for some sort of reaction. She was expressionless, so completely devoid of movement that she didn't look like herself. And then, just when he was certain that he'd lost her forever, her mouth came together in a peevish line and she said, Well, that's a relief, I must say. His lips parted. I beg your pardon? I wasn't particularly excited about my children carrying Lord St. Clair's blood. She shrugged, lifting her brows in a particularly hyacinthish expression. I'm happy for them to have his title. It's a handy thing to possess, after all. But his blood is quite another thing. He's remarkably bad-tempered. Did you know that? Gareth nodded, a bubble of giddy emotion rising within him. I noticed, he heard himself said. I suppose we'll have to keep it a secret, she said, if she were speaking of nothing more than the idlest of gossip. Who else knows? He blinked, still a little dazed by her matter-of-fact approach to the problem. Just the Baron and me, as far as I'm aware. And your real father. I hope not, Gareth said, and he realized that it was the first time he'd actually allowed himself to say the words, even really might think them. He might not have known, Hyacinth said quietly, or he might have thought you were better off with the St. Clairs, as a child of nobility. I know all that, Gareth said bitterly, and yet, somehow, it doesn't make it any better. Your grandmother might know. His eyes flew to her face. Isabella, she clarified, in her diary. She wasn't really my grandmother. Did she ever act that way? As if you weren't hers? He shook his head. No, he said, losing himself to the memories. She loved me. I don't know why, but she did. It might be, Hyatt said, her voice catching in the oddest manner, because you're slightly lovable. His heart leapt. Then you don't wish to end the engagement, he said somewhat cautiously. She looked at him with an uncommonly direct gaze. Do you? He shook his head. Then why, she said, her lips forming the barest of smiles, would you think that I would? Your family might object. We're not so high in the instep as that. My brother's wife is the illegitimate daughter of the Earl of Penwood, and an actress of God knows what provenance. And any one of us would lay down our lives for her. Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully. But you are not illegitimate. He shook his head, to my father's everlasting despair. Well then, I don't see a problem. My brother and Sophie like to live quietly in the country, in part because of her past, but we shan't be forced to do the same, unless of course you wish to. The Baron could raise a huge scandal, he warned her. She smiled. Are you trying to talk me out of marrying you? I just want you to understand, because I would hope by now you've learned that it's a tiresome endeavor to attempt to talk me out of anything. Gareth could only smile at that. Your father won't say a word, she stated. What would be the point? We were born in wedlock, so we can't take away the title, and revealing you as a bastard would only reveal him as a cuckold. She waved her hands through the air with great authority. No man wants that. His lips curved, and he felt something changing inside of him, as if he were growing lighter, more free. And you can speak for all men, he murmured, moving slowly in her direction. Would you wish to be known as a cuckold? He shook his head. But I don't have to worry about that. She started to look just a little unnerved, but also excited, as he closed the distance between them. Not if you keep me happy. Why, Hyacinth Bridgerton? Is that a threat? Her expression turned coy. Perhaps. He was only a step away now. I can see that I have my work cut out for me. Her chin lifted and her chest began to rise and fall more rapidly. I'm not a particularly easy woman. He found her hand and lifted her fingers to his mouth. I do enjoy a challenge. Then it's a good thing you're... He took one of her fingers and gave it a kiss, and she gasped. Marrying me, she somehow finished. He moved to another finger. You do like to talk, he said with a chuckle. What do you... Oh! He smiled to himself as he moved to the inside of her wrist. Mean by that? There wasn't much punch left in her. She was quite literally melting against the wall, and he felt like the king of the world. Oh, nothing much, he murmured, tugging her close so that he could move his lips to the side of her throat. Just that I'm looking forward to marrying you so that you can make as much noise as you'd like. He couldn't see her face. He was too busy attending to the neckline of her dress, which clearly had to be brought down, but he knew she blushed. He could feel the heat beneath her skin. Gareth, she said in a feeble protest. We should stop. You don't mean that, he said, sliding his hand under the hem of her skirt. No, she sighed, not really. Good. His fingers tickled up her leg and she lost her last shred of sanity. And she said, no, we can't. And then he thought about doing it on the desk, but it wouldn't be comfortable, so they thought about moving it to the bedroom. And then they just kind of kept getting it on. And then she was limp and breathless. But they didn't quite get it on. He just touched her. And that is the tea. Let's see, where are we? And then he said... he said happy? He murmured, gazing down at her indulgently. She stopped, but that was all she managed. He dropped a kiss on her nose, then remembered the papers he'd left on the desk. They weren't quite complete, but still, it seemed a good time to show them to her. I have a present for you, he said. Her eyes lit up. You do? He nodded. Just keep in mind that it's a thought that counts. She smiled, following him to his desk, then taking a seat in the chair in front of him. Gareth pushed aside some books, then carefully lifted a piece of paper. It's not done. I don't care, she said softly. But still, he didn't show it to her. I think it's rather obvious that we are not going to find the jewels, he said. No, she protested, we can't. Shh, let me finish. It went against her every last impulse, but she managed to shut her mouth. I am not in possession of a great deal of money. That doesn't matter. I'm glad you feel that way, because while we shan't want for anything, nor will we live like your brothers and sisters. I don't need all that, she said quickly, and she didn't, or at least she hoped she didn't. But she knew, down to the tips of her toes, that she didn't need anything as much as she needed him. He looked slightly grateful, and also maybe just a little bit uncomfortable. It'll probably be even worse once I inherit the title, he added. I think the Baron is trying to fix it so that he can beggar me from beyond the grave. Are you trying to talk me out of marrying you again? Oh no, he said. You're definitely stuck with me now. But I did want you to know that if I could, I would give you the world. He held out the paper. Starting with this. She took the sheet into her own hands and looked down. It was a drawing of her. Her eyes widened with surprise. Did you do this? She asked. He nodded. I'm not well trained, but I can... It's very good, she said, cutting him off. He would never find his way into history as a famous artist. But the likeness was a good one, and she rather thought he'd capture something in her eyes, something that she'd not seen in any of the portraits of her that her family commissioned. I have been thinking about Isabella, he said, leaning against the edge of his desk, and I remembered a story she told me when I was young. There was a princess, and an evil prince, and, he smiled ruefully, a diamond bracelet. Hyacinth had been watching his face, mesmerized by the warmth in his eyes, but at this she looked quickly back down at the drawing. There, on her wrist, was a diamond bracelet. I'm sure it's nothing like what she actually hid, he said, but it is how I remember her describing it to me, and it is what I would give to you, if only I could. Gareth, She felt tears welling in her eyes, threatening to spill down her cheeks. It is the most precious gift I have ever received. He looked not like he didn't believe her, but rather like he wasn't quite sure that he should. You don't have to say, it is, she insisted, rising to her feet. He turned and picked another piece of paper up off the desk. I drew it here as well, he said, but larger, so you could see it better. She took the second piece of paper into her hands and looked down. He'd drawn just the bracelet, as if suspended in air. It's lovely, she said, touching the image with her fingers. He gave her a self-deprecating smile. If it doesn't exist, it should. She nodded, still examining the drawing. The bracelet was lovely, each link shaped almost like a leaf. It was delicate and whimsical, and Hyacinth ached to place it on her wrist. But she could never treasure it as much as she did these two drawings. Never. She looked up, her lips parting with surprise. She almost said, I love you. I love them, she said instead, but when she looked up at him, she rather fancied that the truth was in her eyes. I love you, she thought. She smiled and placed her hand over his. She wanted to say it, but she wasn't quite ready. She didn't know why, except that maybe she was afraid to say it first. She, who was afraid of almost nothing, could not quite summon the courage to utter 3 little words. It was astounding, terrifying, and she decided to change the mood. I still want to look for the jewels, she said, clearing her throat until her voice emerged in its customarily efficient manner. He groaned. Why won't you give up? Because I can't, she clamped her mouth into a frown. I certainly don't want your father to have them. Oh, she looked up. Am I to call him that? He shrugged. I still do. It's a difficult habit to break. She acknowledged this with a nod. I don't care if Isabella wasn't really your grandmother. You deserve the bracelet. He gave her an amused smile. And why is that? It stumped her for a moment. Because you do, she finally said. Because someone has to have it. I don't want it to be him. Because... She glanced longingly down at the drawing in her hands. Because this is gorgeous. Can't we wait to find our Slovenian translator? She shook her head, pointing at the note still lying on the desk. What if it's not in Slovene? I thought you said it was, he said, clearly exasperated. I said my brother thought it was, she returned. Do you know how many languages there are in Central Europe? He cursed under his breath. I know, she said. It's very frustrating. He stared at her in disbelief. That's not why I swore. Then why? Because you are going to be the death of me, he ground out. Hyacinth smiled, pointing her index finger and pressing it right against his chest. Now you know why I said my family was mad to get me off their hands. God help me, I do. She cocked her head to the side. Can we go tomorrow? No. The next day? No. Please, she tried. He clamped his hands on her shoulders and spun her around until she faced the door. "I'm taking you home," he announced. She turned, trying to talk over her shoulder. "Please, no." Hyacinth shuffled along, allowing him to push her toward the door. When she could not put it off any longer, she grasped the doorknob. But before she turned it, she twisted back one last time, opened her mouth, and "No! I didn't!" "Very well," he groaned, practically throwing his arms up in exasperation. "You win." "Oh, but you are not coming." She froze, her mouth still open around. "I beg your pardon?" she said. "I will go," he said, looking very much as if he'd rather have all of his teeth pulled. "But you will not." She stared at him, trying to come up with a way to say, "That's not fair," without sounding juvenile. Deciding that was impossible, she set to work, attempting to figure out how to ask, how she would know he'd actually gone without sounding as if she didn't trust him. Botheration, that was a lost cause as well. So she settled for crossing her arms and skewering him with a glare. To no effect whatsoever, he just stared down at her and said, "No." Hyacinth opened her mouth one last time, then gave up, sighed, and said, "Well, I suppose if I could walk all over you, you wouldn't be worth marrying." He threw back his head and laughed. "You're going to be a fine wife, Hyacinth Bridgerton," he said, nudging her out of the room. He groaned. "Good God, but not if you turn into my grandmother." "It is my very aspiration," she said archly. "Pity," he murmured, tugging at her arm so that she came to a halt before they reached to his sitting room. She turned to him, questioning with her eyes. He curved his lips, all innocence. "Well, I can't do this with my grandmother." "Oh," she yelped. How had he gotten his hand there? "Or this." "Gareth." "Gareth, yes? Or Gareth, no?" She smiled, and she couldn't help it. "Gareth more." And that was the end of chapter 18. Alright, I have my notes, but let me check chat. They're so cute together. They're okay. You hear the blush. "Hi, Mr. Who. Welcome in. Thank you for the check-in. From the window to the wall, to the wall." Vanish. "Oh no, Vanish fun, but we do have a lurk. Enjoy your time in the honey pot." And King Thomas, thank you for the hydrate check. It's cute, but I don't think he answered why he's marrying her. All he said was that he's an illegitimate son. He didn't say like, "Oh, 'cause I love you, 'cause I can't be without you, 'cause you're the love of my life." You know? He said, "I'm illegitimate." You know? You know? That's kind of whack, right? Is it just me? Don't you guys think it's a little odd? Like, he really didn't answer the question. He's avoiding the question, and she's like, "Oh my god, thank you for sharing with me. I guess we can get married," so. But he's worried that his past will ruin it. Yeah. But she said, "Why do you marry me?" And he didn't say, he didn't really say anything. "Hey, why do you like me?" "I'm illegitimate." And if I was her, I think the whole "I'm a bastard" is even more avoiding it than before. Yeah, like he straight up did not say anything. Like, tell her you love her, my dude, my brother. All you have to say is, "I'm in love with you." That's it. And he just like doesn't say it. So that was kind of whack. But you know what? It isn't that easy. It's not, but they're getting on my nerves, pissing me off. All right, let's go ahead and keep it going. How many chapters? So chapter 19, chapter 20. Chapter 21. And an epilogue. "19, 20, 21, epilogue. So we still have 5 chapters to go. So actually, I think we're just gonna read our typical 3 guys, and then I'm gonna finish this up during the week. Okay? We're gonna have 2 reading streams this week. Also, I bought more books. So after this book, we will take a break from Bridgerton and read something else, just so you guys know. So we have 2 more chapters that we're gonna read tonight, and then we'll do the final 3 sometime during this week. And then next Sunday, we will start a new book. And that is the tea, you guys. I've just decided that right now, because I don't think I'm gonna finish all 5 tonight, or all 6 or whatever, because it's kind of a lot. So I hope you guys like hearing me read, because this isn't gonna be the only day. All right, here we go. Like right now we're gonna read 2 more chapters. So that'll take us to chapter 21, or that'll take us to the end of chapter 20, and then we'll save 21 and the 2 epilogues, which are like what comes after the story, for sometime during the week. So clearly we do, that's why we're here. Thank goodness. I've been enjoying these a lot. All right, here we go, guys. Chapter 19, the following Tuesday. Everything important seems to happen on a Tuesday, doesn't it? Look what I have! Hyacinth grinned as she stood in the doorway of Lady Danbury's drawing room, holding aloft Miss Davenport and the dark marquee. A new book? Lady D asked from her position across the room. She was seated in her favorite chair, but from the way she held herself, it might as well have been a throne. Not just any book, Hyacinth said with a sly smile as she held it forth. Look. Lady Danbury took the book in her hands, glanced down, and positively beamed. We haven't read this one yet, she said. She looked back up at Hyacinth. I hope it's just as bad as the rest. Sorry, I'm moving my keyboard. Oh, come now, Lady Danbury, Hyacinth said, taking a seat next to her. You shouldn't call them bad. I didn't say they weren't entertaining, the Countess said, eagerly flipping through the pages. How many chapters do we have left with dear Miss Butterworth? Hyacinth plucked the book in the question off a nearby table and opened it to the spot she had marked the previous Tuesday. 3, she said, flipping back and forth to check. I wonder how many cliffs poor Priscilla can hang from in that time. 2 at least, I should think, Hyacinth murmured, provided she isn't struck with the plague. Lady Danbury attempted to peer at the book over her shoulder. Do you think it possible? A bit of the bubonic would do wonders for the prose. Hyacinth chuckled. Perhaps that should have been the subtitle. Miss Butterworth and the Mad Baron. Or, she lowered her voice dramatically, a bit of the bubonic. I prefer pecked to death by pigeons myself. Maybe we should write a book, Hyacinth said with a smile, getting ready to launch into chapter 18. Lady Danbury looked as if she wanted to clap Hyacinth on the head. That is exactly what I've been telling you. Hyacinth scrunched her nose as she shook her head. No, she said. It really wouldn't be much fun past the titles. Do you think anyone would wish to buy a collection of amusing book titles? They would if it had my name on the cover, Lady D said with great authority. Speaking of which, how is your translation of my grandson's other grandmother's diary coming along? Hyacinth's head bobbed slightly as she tried to follow Lady D's convoluted sentence structure. I'm sorry, she finally said. How does that have anything to do with people being compelled to purchase a book with your name on the cover? Lady Danbury waved her hand forcefully in the air, as if Hyacinth's comment were a physical thing she could push away. You haven't told me anything, she said. I'm only a little bit more than halfway through, Hyacinth admitted. I remember far less Italian than I had thought, and I'm finding it much more difficult task than I had anticipated. Lady D nodded. She was a lovely woman. Hyacinth blinked in surprise. You knew her? Isabella? Of course I did. Her son married my daughter. Oh, yes. Hyacinth murmured. She didn't know why this hadn't occurred to her before, and she wondered, did Lady Danbury know something about the circumstances of Gareth's birth? Gareth had said that she did not, or at least that she had never spoken to her about it. But perhaps each was keeping silent on the assumption that the other did not know. Hyacinth opened her mouth, then closed it sharply. It was not her place to say anything. It was not. But no. She clamped her teeth together as if that would keep her from blurting anything out. She could not reveal Gareth's secret. She absolutely, positively could not. Did you eat something sour? Lady D asked without any delicacy whatsoever. You look rather ill. I'm perfectly well, Hyacinth said. pasting a sprightly smile on her face. I was merely thinking about the diary. I brought it with me, actually, to read in the carriage. She had been working on the translation tirelessly since learning Garrett's secret earlier that week. She wasn't sure if they could ever learn the identity of Garrett's real father, but Isabella's diary seemed to be the best possible place to start the search. Did you? Lady Danbury sat back in the chair, closing her eyes. Read to me from that instead, why don't you? You don't understand Italian, Hyacinth pointed out. I know, but it's a lovely language, so melodious and smooth, and I need to take a nap. Are you certain? Hyacinth asked, reaching into her small satchel for the diary. That I need a nap? Yes, more's the pity. It started 2 years ago. Now I can't exist without one each afternoon. Actually, I was referring to the reading of the diary, Hyacinth murmured. If you wish to fall asleep, there are certainly better methods than my reading to you in Italian. Why, Hyacinth, Lady D said with a noise that sounded suspiciously like a cackle. Are you offering to sing me lullabies? Hyacinth rolled her eyes. You're as bad as a child. Whence we came, my dear Miss Bridgerton, whence we came. Hyacinth shook her head and found her spot in the diary. She'd left off in the spring of 1793, 4 years before Garrett's birth. According to what she had read in the carriage on the way over, Garrett's mother was pregnant with what Hyacinth assumed would be Garrett's older brother, George. She had suffered 2 miscarriages before that, which had not endeared her to her husband. What Hyacinth was finding most interesting about the tale was the disappointment Isabella expressed about her son. She loved him, yes, but she regretted the degree to which she allowed her husband to mold him. As a result, Isabella had written, the son was just like the father. He treated his mother with disdain, and his wife fared no better. Hyacinth was finding the entire tale to be rather sad. She liked Isabella. There was an intelligence and humor to her writing that shone through, even when Hyacinth was not able to translate every word. And Hyacinth liked to think that if they had been of an age, they would have been friends. It saddened her to realize the degree to which Isabella had been stifled and made unhappy by her husband. And it reinforced her belief that it really did matter who one married, not for wealth or status, although Hyacinth was not so idealistic that she could pretend those were completely unimportant. But one only got one life, and God willing, one husband. And how nice to actually like the man to whom one pledged one's troth. Isabella hadn't been beaten or misused, but she had been ignored, and her thoughts and opinions had gone unheard. Her husband sent her off to some remote country house, and he taught his sons by example. Garrett's father treated his wife the exact same way. Hyacinth supposed that Garrett's uncle would have been the same, too, if he had lived long enough to take a wife. Are you going to read to me or not? Lady D asked somewhat stridently. Hyacinth looked over the Countess, who had not even bothered to open her eyes for her demand. Sorry, she said, using her finger to find where she had left off. I just need a moment to... here we are. Hyacinth cleared her throat and began to read in Italian. Si avvicini il giorno in cui nascerà il mio primo nipote, prego ci sia un maschio. She translated in her head as she continued to read aloud in Italian. The day draws near in which will be born my first grandchild. I pray that it will be a boy. I would love a little girl. I would probably be allowed to see her and love her more, but it will be better for us if we all have a boy. I'm afraid to think how quickly Anne will be forced to endure the attentions of my son if she has a girl. I should love better my own son, but instead I worry about his wife. Hyacinth paused, eyeing Lady Danbury for signs that she understood any of the Italian. This was her daughter she was reading about, after all. Hyacinth wondered if the Countess had any idea how sad the marriage had been, but Lady D had remarkably started to snore. Hyacinth blinked in surprise and suspicion. She had never dreamed that Lady Danbury might fall asleep that quickly. She held silent for a few moments, waiting for the Countess's eyes to pop open with a loud demand for her to continue. After a minute, however, Hyacinth was confident that Lady D really had fallen asleep, so she continued reading to herself, laboriously translating each sentence in her head. The next entry was dated a few months later. Isabella expressed her relief that Anne had delivered a boy, who had been christened George. The Baron was beside himself with pride, and had even given his wife the gift of a gold bracelet. Hyacinth flipped a few pages ahead, trying to see how long it would be until Isabella reached 1797, the year of Gareth's birth. 1, 2, 3, she counted the pages, passing quickly through the years. 7, 8, 9. 1796. Gareth had been born in March, so if Isabella had written about his conception, it would be here, not 1797. 10 pages away, that was all. And it occurred to her, why not skip ahead? There was no law requiring her to read the diary in perfect chronological order. She could just peek ahead to 1796 and 1797 and see if there was anything relating to Gareth and his parentage. If not, she'd go right back to where she'd left off and start reading anew. And wasn't it Lady Danbury who said that patience most certainly was not a virtue? Hyacinth glanced ruefully down at 1793, then holding the 5 leaves of paper as one shifted to 1796. Back, forth, forth. She turned to 1796 and planted her hand down so that she wouldn't turn back again. Definitely forth. 24 June 1796, she read to herself. I arrived at Clare House for a summer visit, only to be informed that my son had already left for London. Hyacinth quickly subtracted months in her head. Gareth was born in March of 1797. 3 months took her back to 1796, and another 6 to June. And Gareth's father was out of town. Barely able to breathe, Hyacinth read on. Anne seems contented that he is gone, and little George is such a treasure. Is it so terrible to admit that I am more happy when Richard isn't here? It is such a joy to have all the persons I love so close. Hyacinth scowled as she finished the entry. There was nothing out of the ordinary there, nothing about a mysterious stranger or an improper friend. She glanced up at Lady Danbury, whose head was now tilted awkwardly back. Her mouth was hanging a bit open, too. Hyacinth turned resolutely back to the diary. Turning to the next entry, dated 3 months later, she gasped. Anne is carrying a child, and we all know it cannot be Richard's. He's been away for 2 months. 2 months. I am afraid for her. He is furious, but she will not reveal the truth. Reveal it, Hyacinth ground out. Reveal it. Eh? Hyacinth slammed the book shut and looked up. Lady Danbury was stirring in her seat. Why did you stop reading? Lady D asked groggily. I didn't, Hyacinth lied, her fingers holding the diary so tightly it was a wonder she didn't burn holes through it. You fell asleep. Did I? Lady Danbury murmured. I must be getting old. Hyacinth smiled tightly. Very well, Lady D said with a wave of her hand. She fidgeted a bit, moving first to the left, then to the right, then back to the left again. I'm awake now. Now back to Miss Butterworth. Hyacinth was aghast. Now? As opposed to when? Hyacinth had no answer for that. Very well, she said with as much patience as she could muster. She forced herself to set the diary down beside her, and she picked up Miss Butterworth and the Mad Baron in its stead. Ahem, she cleared her throat, turning to the first page of chapter 18. Ahem. Throat bothering you? Lady Danbury asked. I still have some tea in the pot. It's nothing, Hyacinth said. She exhaled, looked down, and read, with decidedly less animation than was usual. The Baron was in possession of a secret. Priscilla was quite certain of that. The only question was, would the truth ever be revealed? Indeed, Hyacinth muttered. Huh? I think something important is about to happen, Hyacinth said with a sigh. Something important is always about to happen, my dear girl. And if not, you do well to act as if it were. You'll enjoy life better that way. For Lady Danbury, the comment was uncharacteristically philosophical. Hyacinth paused, considering her words. I have no patience with this current fashion for ennui, Lady Danbury continued, reaching for her cane and thumping it against the floor. When did it become a crime to show an interest in things? I beg your pardon? Just read the book, Lady D said. I think we're getting to the good part, finally. Hyacinth nodded. The problem was, she was getting to the good part of the other book. She took a breath, trying to return her attention to Miss Butterworth, but the words swam before her eyes. Finally, she looked up at Lady Danbury and said, I'm sorry, but would you mind terribly if I cut our visit short? I'm not feeling quite the thing. Lady Danbury stared at her as if she just announced that she was carrying Napoleon's love child. I'd be happy to make it up to you tomorrow, Hyacinth quickly added. Lady D blinked. But it's Tuesday. I realize that. You are a creature of habit, aren't you? The hallmark of civilization is routine. Yes, I understand, but the sign of a truly advanced mind is the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Hyacinth's mouth fell open. Never in her wildest dreams would she have imagined Lady Danbury uttering that. Go on, dear child, Lady D said, shooing her toward the door. Do whatever it is that has you so intrigued. For a moment, Hyacinth could do nothing but stare at her. And then, suffused with a feeling that was as lovely as it was warm, she gathered her things, rose to her feet, and crossed the room to Lady Danbury's side. You're going to be my grandmother, she said, leaning down and giving her a kiss on the cheek. She'd never assumed such familiarity before, but somehow it felt right. You silly child, Lady Danbury said, brushing at her eyes as Hyacinth walked to the door. In my heart, I've been your grandmother for years. I've just been waiting for you to make it official. That was sweet. That was a sweet little chapter, wasn't it, guys? I liked that. Although I'm ready to get to the bottom of this diary. Like, they have chapter 20 and 21 to wrap this up. To get the jewels, get married, have the big love confession. I'm sure they're gonna bone again. And then they have 2 chapters of an epilogue. So like, I don't know. This book just isn't gripping me like the other ones did. You know? Like, it's just, I still just kind of feel like lukewarm about it. It's just okay. Are they long chapters? I don't really know. They're like regular chapters. It feels long reading them out loud. Like, if I wasn't reading this out loud, I'm sure I would have finished this a while ago. But because I'm reading it out loud to you, you know? It's not terrible, but it's not my favorite. So I did buy some new books the other day. Let me see if I have the receipt on my phone. And, what do you call it? It's because I'm officially all caught up. Do you guys remember that other book that I started reading on here? What do you call it? Come on, Toasty, get the dang words out. It was called Slow Dance or whatever, and I told you guys that I wasn't really feeling it. Do you guys remember that? Okay, well, in case you guys wanted to know, I hated it. It's not that I hated it, I just didn't really care for it. It's kind of whack, like, overall for me. Would I recommend it? It's marketed for people who are older, right? Not that I'm older, but what I mean by older, I mean like not like 18. It's not for 18-year-olds. It's for people who are like in the process of finding love, right? But it's written, I don't think I was the demographic for it. It's written like a young adult novel, but it's marketed for like women in their like 40s who have children and had a missed connection from when they were in high school. So it's like, I'm reading this and I'm like, not only can I not really relate to this at all, I don't like the way it's written because you're talking about grown people, but in a very young adult kind of writing style, right? Where it's so conversational and kind of informal. It just wasn't my type of book. Does that make sense? And also just like the way they ended up getting together, literally it was like it was a slow burn book, but it was crazy slow burn. And then all of a sudden when they do get together, they don't even date. They just go straight into like getting engaged. So yeah, I didn't really like it for me, so it also sounded boring. I mean, it just wasn't for, it was just too slow of a slow burn. Like this whole will they won't they thing, like I like that, but not when it's not done the right way. Hello Andrew, thank you for the check-in. So yeah, I finished it, guys. So because I finished it, I went out and bought more books, which I'll tell you what, I can tell you what they are. I just have to find it in my messages. Okay, I got The Stationery Shop, The Light We Lost, and The Paper Palace. Wait, no. I know I have to look at them. I know I have The Stationery Shop and The Light We Lost, but I can't remember if I got 28 Summers or The Paper Palace. One of those I got. So. And then I picked up an extra one too. I think I got The Paper Palace.
Water.
They're all supposed to be sad, but they're all written like how I like for JoJo Moyes. And they're not a fake dating trope, because I hate fake dating trope books where it's like, oh, let's pretend to date and then we end up loving each other. I'm not really into that style of writing or that style of romance. There are romance books too, guys, just so you know. But they're supposed to be sad, or at least like written in the similar style of The Last Letter from Your Lover. So if you guys like The Last Letter from Your Lover, you'll probably like one of the few ones that I just got. Paper Palace sounds stupid familiar, perhaps. How are you, Andrew? And thank you for the hydrate check. Weren't you traveling soon? Or did you already travel? Then they had another one by the front where they're like, hey, if you buy this book, I can give you one of your other books for half off. So I picked that up too. So yeah. So let's say that the number one, gosh dang it, I could just go walk and figure out which books they are. After this next chapter, I'm gonna run downstairs real quick. Let me get my life together. Actually, let me take a quick 5-minute break and go grab the books. That way we can vote on the next one that I should read. Okay, guys? Because I'm gonna take one to work and then I'm gonna read one here. So I need to know which one I'm gonna take to work. So just give me like 1 sec. Don't look them up, and I'll be right back in a few minutes. Enjoy the ad break. Okay, be right back, and I'm glad you made it to your thing. Okay, BRB. Okay, y'all. We are back. All I did was walk downstairs and grab this. So the first book that we have, we'll just call it number 1, is Paper Palace. And The Light We Lost. And, okay, so I had it, and The Stationery Shop. And then the last book that I got, which is the monthly pick for Barnes & Noble, is Where a Bad Idea Writes. So this is the only one that I didn't research. What I did... Why is this already so ugly and bent? What the fudge? Why do these pages look so ugly? This book looks like it's gonna fall apart. Okay, well, putting that aside. Oh god, I'm gonna have to put this under something flat. These pages are like unevenly cut. I wonder if this was an aesthetic choice or if this is how it's supposed to look. It probably is an aesthetic choice. Okay, so we have those 3. One says it's a powerful love story, the epic love story, and another is irresistible. And then the last one doesn't have a little blurb on it like that, but it's fine. Oh wait, come for the perfectly executed fake dating romance? I hate that. I just said I hate freaking fake tropes. And that lady in the front gave me this Where a Bad Idea Right confidently. Man. What did I just say? I hate fake dating. Okay, well this just got moved to the... It was only $5. That girl is getting fired. Haley, that was her name. Haley at Barnes & Noble. I can't stand the fake dating trope where it's like, teehee, let's pretend to fake date. Oh wait, we should probably kiss so we can seal the deal. Hold on, did I like that kiss? Like, I'm just not into the fake dating trope. It's just, I've never liked it. Sorry guys. It's so predictable and just unrealistic. I've never looked at someone and be like, hey, you know what we should do? We should totally pretend to date to like stick it to the man. Like, I just feel like that doesn't happen in real life, you know? I like my stories with a little bit of it has to be realistic, guys. Anyways, okay, so the 3 books are The Light We Lost, The Stationery Shop, and The Paper Palace. So, I'll just put realism. Thank you. I don't know why I was struggling with that. I'm gonna create a new poll. Which book should I read next? Read on stream next. Don't spoil them for me. Okay. All I did was look up, I gave Claude, I don't believe in using AI except for things like this. I gave Claude the book, my favorite books, right? And then I said I really like the writing style of Jojo Moyes and Taylor Jenkins Reid. Recommend me 10 books that are sold at Barnes & Noble that will, you know, kind of match the vibe. And I said also take out any ones that have fake dating tropes in them because I hate that. So, and The Stationery Shop. And I'll keep it up for 10 minutes, I guess. So I just put a poll out. Please participate in it. So that'll help me decide what book I should, book 3. That's okay. That's okay. Like that movie with that chick from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. What movie? Doesn't sound cool, it's valid, and it's pretty bad. Use AI to decide how I treat a patient. No. I use AI to help me make little decisions like that. So I don't have to potentially buy another book that I don't like. So yeah, those are the 3 books. Please vote on which one you think I should read on stream next. And then whatever doesn't get picked, I will take one to work. And that is the tea. I also really hate, on a side note, when they put stickers on books, because then I gotta peel them off. Where they dated to make other people talk and then they fell in love. Yeah, it's just not for me, you know? Let's date. That'll make them jealous. And then they love them, you know? It's like, ugh, that's so whack. Okay, let's finish this last chapter. Okay? We just discovered that in the diary they're kind of starting to talk about, you know, They're in Garrett's time frame, so he might figure out who, who it is. So, here we go. And let me know if I need to change the settings on anything, guys. Chapter 20. Later that night, quite a bit later actually, Hyacinth's attempt at translation had to be postponed for a lengthy family dinner, followed by an interminable game of charades. Finally, at 11:30, she found the information she was seeking. Excitement proved stronger than caution. Another 10 minutes, and Gareth would have not been there to hear the knock. He would have pulled on his jumper, a rough woolen thing that his grandmother would have called dreadfully uncouth, but which had the advantage of being black as night. He was just sitting on his sofa to don his most quietly soled boots when he heard it. A knock, soft but adamant. A glance at the clock told him it was almost midnight. Phelps had long since gone to bed, so Gareth went to the door himself, positioning himself near the heavy wood with a, "Yes?" "It is I," came the insistent reply. "What? No, it couldn't be." He yanked the door open. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, pulling Hyacinth into the room. She went flying by him, stumbling into a chair as he let go to peer out into the hall. "Didn't you bring someone with you?" She shook her head. "No time to—" "Are you mad?" he whispered furiously. "Have you gone stark, raving insane?" He thought he'd been angry with her last time she'd done this, running through London on her own after dark. But at least then she had some sort of an excuse, having been surprised by his father. This time, he could barely control himself. "I'm going to have to lock you up," he said, more to himself than to her. "That is it. That is the only solution. I am just going to have to hold you down, and if you'll just listen, get in here," he bit off, grabbing her by the arm and pulling her into his bedroom. It was the furthest from Phelps's small quarters off the drawing room. The valet usually slept like the dead, but with Garrett's luck, this would be the night he decided to awaken for a midnight snack. "Gareth," Hyacinth whispered, scurrying behind him. "I have to tell you." He turned on her with furious eyes. "I don't want to hear anything from you that doesn't start with 'I'm a damned fool.'" She crossed her arms. "Well, I'm certainly not going to say that." He flexed and bent his fingers, a carefully controlled movement, the only thing that was keeping him from lunging at her. The world was turning a dangerous shade of red, and all he could think of was the image of her racing across Mayfair, by herself, only to be attacked, mauled. "I'm going to kill you," he ground out. Hell, if anyone was going to attack or maul her, it might as well have been him. But she was just shaking her head, not listening to anything he was saying. "Gareth, I have to—" "No," he said forcefully. "Not a word. Don't say a word. Just sit there." He blinked, realizing that she was standing, then pointed at the bed. "Sit there," he said, quietly, "until I figure out what the hell to do with you." She sat, and for once, she didn't look as if she was going to open her mouth to speak. In fact, she looked somewhat smug, which made him instantly suspicious. He had no idea how she had figured out that he had chosen that night to return to Clare House for one last search for the jewels. He must have let something slip, alluded to the trip during one of their recent conversations. He would have liked to think that he was more careful than that, but Hyacinth was fiendishly clever, and if anyone could have deduced his intentions, it would be her. It was a damn fool endeavor in his opinion. He didn't have a clue where the diamonds might be saved for Hyacinth's theory about the Baroness's bedchamber, but he had promised her he would go, and he must have had a more finely tuned sense of honor than he had thought, because here he was, heading out to Clare House for the third time that month. He glared at her. She smiled serenely, sending him right over the edge. That was it. That was absolutely... "All right," he said, his voice so low it was almost shaking. "We are going to lay out some rules, right here and right now." Her spine stiffened. "I beg your pardon?" "When we are married, you will not exit the house without my permission." "Ever?" she cut in. "Not until you've proven yourself to be a responsible adult," he finished, barely recognizing himself in his own words. But if this was what it took to keep the bloody little fool safe from herself, then so be it. She let out an impatient breath. "When did you grow so pompous? When I fell in love with you, he practically roared, or he would have if they hadn't been in the middle of a building of apartments, all inhabited by single men who stayed up late and liked to gossip. You what? Her mouth fell open into a fetching little oval, but Gareth was too far gone to appreciate the effect. I love you, you idiot woman, he said, his arms jerking and flailing like a madman's. It was astonishing what she had reduced him to. He couldn't remember the last time he lost his temper like this. The last time someone had made him so angry that he could barely speak. Except for her, of course. He ground his teeth together. You are the most maddening, frustrating, and you never know when to stop talking. But God help me, I love you. Anyway. But Gareth, and if I have to tie you to the damn bed just to keep you safe from yourself, as God is my witness, that is what I'll do. But Gareth, not a word, not a single bloody word, he said, wagging his finger toward her in an extremely impolite manner. Finally, his hand seemed to freeze, his index finger stuck to a point, and afterward a few jerky motions, he managed to still himself and drag his hands to his hips. She was staring at him, her blue eyes large and filled with wonder. Gareth couldn't tear his gaze away as she slowly rose to her feet and closed the distance between them. You love me, she whispered. It will be the death of me, I'm sure, but yes, he sighed wearily, exhausted simply by the prospect of it all. I can't seem to help myself. Oh. Her lips quivered, then wobbled, and then somehow she was smiling. Good. Good, he echoed. That's all you have to say? She stepped forward, touched his cheek. I love you too, with all of my heart, with everything I am, and everything. He'd never know what she'd been about to say. It was lost beneath his kiss. Gareth, she gasped during the bare moment when he paused for breath. Not now, he said, his mouth taking hers again. He couldn't stop. He'd told her, and now he had to show her. He loved her. It was as simple as that. But Gareth, shh. He held her head in his hands, and he kissed her and kissed her, until he made the mistake of freeing her mouth by moving to her throat. Gareth, I have to tell you. Not now, he murmured. He had other things in mind. But it's very important, and he dragged himself away. Good God, woman, what is it? You have to listen to me, she said, and he felt somewhat vindicated that her breathing was every bit as labored as his. I know it was mad to come here so late. By yourself. By myself, she granted him, her lips twisting peevishly. But I swear to you, I wouldn't have done something this foolish if I hadn't need to speak with you right away. His mouth tilted wryly. A note wouldn't have done? She shook her head. Gareth, she said, and her face was so serious it took his breath away. I know who your father is. It was as if the floor were slipping away, and yet at the same time, he could not tear his eyes off of hers. He clutched her shoulders, his fingers surely digging too hard into her skin, but he couldn't move. For years to come, if anyone had asked him anything about this moment, he would have said that she was the only thing holding him upright. Who is it? He asked, almost dreading her reply. His entire adult life he wanted this answer, and now that it was here, he could feel nothing but terror. It was your father's brother, Hyacinth whispered. It was as if something had slammed into his chest. Uncle Edward? Yes, Hyacinth said, her eyes searching his face with a mix of love and concern. It was in your grandmother's diary. She didn't know at first, no one did, and they only knew it couldn't be your father, the Baron. He was in London all spring and summer, and your mother wasn't. How did you find out? He whispered. And was she certain? Isabella figured it out after you were born, Hyacinth said. She said you looked too much like a St. Clair to be a bastard, and Edward had been in residence at Clare House when your father was gone. Gareth shook his head, desperately trying to comprehend this. Did he know? Your father or your uncle? He turned a strange, humorless sound emerging from his throat. I don't know what to call him. Either of them. Your father, Lord St. Clair, she corrected. He didn't know, or at least Isabella didn't think he did. He didn't know that Edward had been at Clare Hall that summer. He was just out of Oxford and, well, I'm not exactly certain what transpired, but it sounded like he was supposed to go to Scotland with friends, but he didn't. So he went to Clare Hall instead. Your grandmother said... Hyacinth stopped and her face took on a wide-eyed expression. Your grandmother, she murmured. She really was your grandmother. He felt her hand on his shoulder, imploring him to turn, but somehow he couldn't look at her just then. It was too much. It was all too much. Gareth. Isabella was your grandmother. She really was. He closed his eyes, trying to recall Isabella's face. It was hard to do. The memory was so old. But she loved him. He remembered that. She had loved him. And she had known the truth. Would she have told him? If she had lived to see him as an adult, to know the man he had become, would she have told him the truth? He could never know. But maybe, if she had seen how the Baron had treated him, what they had both become, he'd like to think yes. Your uncle, came Hyacinth's voice. He knew, Gareth said with low certitude. He did? How do you know? Did he say something? Gareth shook his head. He didn't know how he knew that Edward had been aware of the truth, but he was certain now that he had. Gareth had been 8 when he last seen his uncle. Old enough to remember things. Old enough to realize what was important. And Edward had loved him. Edward had loved him in a way that the Baron never had. It was Edward who had taught him how to ride. Edward who had given him the gift of a puppy on his 7th birthday. Edward who'd known the family well enough to know that the truth would destroy them all. Richard would never forgive Anne for siring a son who was not his. But if he had ever learned that her lover had been his own brother... Gareth felt himself sink against the wall, needing support beyond his own 2 legs. Maybe it was a blessing that it had taken this long for the truth to be revealed. Gareth? Hyacinth was whispering his name, and he felt her come up next to him, her hand slipping into his with a soft gentleness that made his heart ache. He didn't know what to think. He didn't know whether he should be angry or relieved. He really was a St. Clair, but after so many years of thinking himself an imposter, it was hard to grasp. And given the behavior of the Baron, was that even anything of which to be proud? He'd lost so much. Spent so much time wondering who he was, where he'd come from, and... Gareth. Her voice again, soft, whispering. She squeezed his hand, and then suddenly, he knew. Not that it didn't all matter, because it did, but he knew that it didn't matter as much as she did. That the past wasn't as important as the future. And the family he'd lost wasn't nearly as dear to him as the family he would make. I love you, he said, his voice finally rising above a whisper. He turned, his heart, his very soul in his eyes. I love you. She looked confused by his sudden change in demeanor, but in the end she just smiled, looking for all the world as if she might actually laugh. It was a sort of expression one made when one had too much happiness to keep inside. He wanted to make her look like that every day, every hour, every minute. I love you too, she said. He took her face in his hands and kissed her, once deeply on the mouth. I mean, he said, I really love you. She quirked a brow. Is this a contest? It is anything you want, he promised. She grinned, that enchanting, perfect smile that was so quintessentially hers. I feel I must warn you then, she said, cocking her head to the side. When it comes to contests and games, I always win. Always? Her eyes grew sly. Whenever it matters. He felt himself smile, felt his soul lighten and his worries slip away. And what, precisely, does that mean? It means, she said, reaching up and undoing the buttons of her coat, that I really, really love you. He backed up, crossing his arms as he gave her an assessing look. Tell me more. Her coat fell to the ground. Is that not enough? Oh, not nearly. She tried to look brazen, but her cheeks were starting to turn pink. I will need help with the rest, she said, fluttering her lashes. He was at her side in an instant. I live to serve you. Is that so? She sounded intrigued by the notion, so dangerously so that Gareth felt compelled to add, in the bedroom. His fingers found the twin ribbons at her shoulders, and he gave them a tug, causing the bodice of her dress to loosen dangerously. More help, milady? He murmured. She nodded. Perhaps. He looped his fingers around the neckline, preparing to ease it down, but she placed one hand over his. He looked up, and she was shaking her head. No, she said. You. It took him a moment to grasp her meaning, and then a slow smile spread across his face. But of course, milady, he said, pulling his jumper back over his head. Anything you say. Anything? Right now, he said silkily. Anything. She smiled. The buttons. He moved to the fastening on his shirt. As you wish. And in a moment, his shirt was on the floor, leaving him naked from the waist up. He brought his sultry gaze to her face. Her eyes were wide and her lips parted. He could hear the raspy sound of her breath, in perfect time with the rise and fall of her chest. She was excited, gloriously slow, and it was all he could do to not drag her onto the bed, then and there. Anything else? She looked down toward his breeches, and she was too shy, he realized with delight. She was still too much of an innocent to order them to remove them. This, he said, hooking his thumb under the waistband, and she nodded. So he took his pants off and told her that she was overdressed, and they kissed. And he started taking her clothes off. And she's just really excited. And she was like thinking, I'm gonna make a life with this man, give him love and bear his children. And she was filled with the most wonderful sense of anticipation. And it all started now. She tilted her head, leaned in, and raised herself to her toes, just so she could place one kiss on his lips. I love you, she said. You do, don't you? He murmured, and she realized that he was just as amazed by this miracle as she was. Sometimes I'm gonna drive you mad, she warned. His smile was as lopsided as his shrug. I'll go to my club. And you'll do the same to me, she added. You can have tea with your mother. One of his hands found hers as the other moved around her waist, until they were held together almost in a waltz. And then we'll have the most marvelous time later that night, kissing and begging each other for forgiveness. Gareth, she said, wondering if this ought to be a more serious conversation. Hey, no one said we have to spend every waking moment together, he said, but at the end of the day, he leaned down and kissed each of her eyebrows in turn. And most of the time during, there is no one I would rather see, no one whose voice I would rather hear, and no one whose mind I would rather explore. He kissed her then, once slowly and deeply. I love you, Hyacinth Bridgerton, and I always will. Oh, Gareth. She would have liked to have said something more eloquent, but his words would have to be enough for the both of them, because in this moment she was overcome, too full of emotion to do anything more than sigh his name. And then he scooped her into his arms and carried her to the bed, and all she could say was yes. Her dress fell away before she reached the mattress, and by the time his body covered hers, they were skin against skin. There was something thrilling about being beneath him, feeling his power, his strength. His hands roamed her body, and he kept kissing her, and her heart sang. And then he nudged her feet away from each other, and she was like, please, let's do it. I need this now. And then they started getting it on, and she was like, oh my god, yes. And he was like, wow, this is so great, I love it. And then she cried out, and something within her began to tighten and coil, twisting and tensing until she was certain she'd shatter. And then just when she couldn't possibly bear it for 1 second longer, it all reached its peak, and something burst within her, something amazing and true. And he was really excited about that too. And for a minute, and then he finished. He came. For a minute, maybe two, all they could do was breathe. And then finally, Gareth rolled off of her, still holding her close as she settled onto his side. "Oh my," she said, because it seemed to sum up everything she was feeling. "Oh my." "When are we getting married?" he asked, pulling her gently until they were curved like two spoons. 6 weeks. 2, he said. "Whatever you have to tell your mother, I don't care. Get it changed to 2, or I'll have to haul you off to Gretna." Hyacinth nodded, snuggling herself against him, reveling in the feel of him behind her. 2, she said, the word practically a sigh. "Maybe even just 1. "Even better," he agreed. They lay together for several minutes, enjoying the silence, and then Hyacinth twisted in his arms, craning her neck so that she could see his face. "Were you going out to Claire House this evening?" "You didn't know?" She shook her head. "I didn't think you were going to go again. I promised you I would." "Well, yes, but I thought you were lying just to be nice." Gareth swore under his breath. "You are going to be the death of me. I can't believe you didn't really mean for me to go." "Of course I meant for you to go," she said. "I just didn't think you would." And then she sat up so suddenly that the bed shook. Her eyes widened, and they took on a dangerous glow and sparkle. "Let's go. Tonight." Easy answer. No. "Please? Please? As a wedding gift to me?" "No." "I understand your reluctance." "No," he repeated, trying to ignore the sinking feeling in his stomach. The sinking feeling that he was going to relent. "No, I don't think you do." "But really?" she said, her eyes bright and convincing. "What do we have to lose? We're getting married in 2 weeks." He lifted one brow. "Next week," she corrected. "Next week, I promise." He pondered that. It was tempting. "Please," she said. "You know you want to." "Why?" he wondered aloud. "Do I feel like I am back at university, with the most degenerate of my friends convincing me that I must drink 3 more glasses of gin?" "Why would you wish to be friends with a degenerate?" she asked. Then she smiled with wicked curiosity. "And did you do it?" Gareth pondered the wisdom of answering that. Truly, he didn't wish for her to know the worst of his schoolboy excesses. But it would get her off the topic of the jewels, and, "Let's go," she urged again. "I know you want to." "It is not what I want to do," he murmured, curving one hand around her bottom. "It's not that. I know what I want to do." "Don't you want the jewels?" she prodded. He started to stroke her. "Mm-hmm." "Gareth," she yelped, trying to squirm away. "Gareth, yes, or Gareth—" "No," she said firmly, somehow eluding him and wriggling to the other side of the bed. "Gareth, no. Not until we go to Claire House to look for the jewels." "Good Lord," he muttered. "It's Lysistrata, come home to me in human form." She tossed a triumphant smile over her shoulder as she pulled on her clothing. He rose to his feet, knowing he was defeated. And besides, she did have a point. His main worry had been for her reputation. As long as she remained by his side, he was fully confident of his ability to keep her safe. If they were indeed going to marry in a week or 2, their antics, if caught, would be brushed aside with a wink and a leer. But still, he felt like he ought to offer up at least a token of resistance. So he said, "Aren't you supposed to be tired after all this bed play?" "Positively energized." He let out a weary breath. "This is the last time," he said sternly. Her reply was immediate. "I promise." He pulled on his clothing. "I mean it. If we do not find the jewels tonight, we don't go again until I inherit. Then you may tear the place apart stone by stone if you like." "It won't be necessary," she said. "We're going to find them tonight. I can feel it in my bones." Gareth thought of several retorts, none of which was fit for her ears. She looked down at herself with a rueful expression. "I'm not really dressed for it," she said, fingering the folds of her skirt. The fabric was dark, but it was not the boys' breeches she'd donned on their last 2 expeditions. He didn't even bother to suggest that they postpone their hunt. There was no point, not when she was practically glowing with excitement. And sure enough, she pointed one foot out from beneath the hem of her dress, saying, "But I am wearing my most comfortable footwear, and surely that is the most important thing." Surely. She ignored his peevishness. "Are you ready?" "As I'll ever be," he said with a patently false smile, but the truth was, she planted the seed of excitement within him, and he was already mapping his route in his mind. If he hadn't wanted to go, if he weren't convinced of his ability to keep her safe, he would have lashed her to the bed before allowing her to take one step into the night. He took her hand, lifted it to his mouth, and kissed her. Shall we be off? He nodded. She nodded and tiptoed in front of him out into the hall. We're going to find them, she said softly. I know we will. And that is the end of that chapter. So there is one more chapter and one epilogue, and then there's 2 epilogues, and then we're gonna be done with this book number 7. So the next time we read, kind of debating, do you guys think I should do it on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday? Should I just do it Tuesday so I get it over with? How do we feel about that? Also, like, these chapters are good, but I feel like we're rushing to get to the ending, you know? It's all over the place. And why is it every time something good happens, their first reaction is, let's get it poppin'? Do you want me to ask the Magic 8 Ball? You think I should read it Wednesday, not Tuesday? Or Tuesday? Up. Come on, guys. Tuesday or Wednesday? Tuesday? Alright, Tuesday it is. Magic 8 Ball. Magic 8 Ball. With all your wisdom, reach into the nether realm and answer Loco this. Should he call out tomorrow? Concentrate and ask again. Magic 8 Ball, please grant me this amazing knowledge. Should Loco call out of work tomorrow? My sources say no. There you go, buddy. You should not call out of work tomorrow. I should ask the Magic 8 Ball. Okay, we'll ask the Magic 8 Ball if I should do it Tuesday. And if it says no, then we'll do it Wednesday. Oh, wise Magic 8 Ball. Please reach into another dimension and grant me this piece of knowledge. Should I finish book number 7 of Bridgerton on Tuesday? Cannot predict now. One more time. Magic 8 Ball, I'll keep this between you and I. Please let me know. Should I finish this book on Tuesday? Yes. There you go. The ball's having some indecision. It is. But it looks like Tuesday it is. It gave us a clear yes. Who are the ball's sources? I don't know. You'll have to ask it. But it looks like we will be reading the rest of this book on Tuesday, guys. Ball's having some indecision. It really is. All good things must come to an end. And this stream is not immune to it. If you are sad about this stream ending, I get it, but do not fret, for I will be back here Tuesday night. As you guys know, I recently changed my schedule again, and I wouldn't be surprised if it changes again, but that's a talk for eventually. It's definitely changing to where Mondays are not my stream days because I am going to poll on Mondays. So there you have it. This is a decision that I think is good for me. So we will be reading Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. You're not sad. It's just a nice pause till we meet again to hear you finish the 7th book. Exactly. Don't look up a spoiler. I saw the results of the poll, but I don't see it now. Can anybody tell me what book won? Like, I don't see it on here anymore. Oh, wait, maybe I can find it if I open up the browser version. Was it the stationery shop? I feel like that's the one that I saw win, but I'm not entirely sure. Gosh, dang it, Toasty. Why didn't you write it down? I looked at it and then I looked away. How do I look at the result? Oh, wait, here we go. View results. Yeah, so looks like the next book we will be reading here on the stream is The Stationery Shop. Which means I'll take another one of these to work. So I'll take the light we lost because I wanted to by this last time and they didn't have it. So there you have it. So Tuesday we are going to be reading Bridgerton. We're going to be finishing it. And then next Sunday we'll be starting The Stationery Shop. And I'm looking forward to it. I think on my Claude ratings, that's the one that got #1 that I would like the most. Let me check because I have it written down. Hold on, guys. Stationery Shop got a 10 out of 10 on Claude for books that I would like, and The Light We Lost was the 9.7. So yeah, you guys will get to read the book. A Claude rating like this. It's spelled like this. I use Claude AI instead of ChatGPT. So if you ever hear me say I talked to my AI friend or I asked ChatGPT, what I really mean to say is I asked Claude. So yeah, that's what we're gonna be reading come next Sunday. But Tuesday we're gonna fit one more reading stream in. Usually I only read once a week, but I want to finish this Bridgerton book and start next Sunday with something fresh. So I'm looking forward to it, guys. Claude looks like it's gonna, or I'm sorry, Claude. The Stationery Shop looks like it's gonna be a smaller read than this one, so that's kind of cool. But it has a lot of pages in it still. But I just don't think it's as thick as this Bridgerton book. Okay, sorry about the beginning of the stream. I really don't know why my stuff crashed, but hey, at least we got it right. I think it was like 28 minutes, so it took us right to about 2 hours, so that's cool. We didn't lose any time really from it. We'll be back here again on Tuesday for another reading stream where I'll finish this out, and I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully I have some good news about how poll goes tomorrow. But I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week if I don't see you again, but I sure hope I do. Good night and stay sweet, everyone. See ya. Bye, y'all.